Thank you so much. You know, if you want to feel really good about yourself, you should do a project with the Ole Miss Women's Council for Philanthropy. They know how to build people up. They are leaders, they are mentors, and they are power. They make things happen. And to be a part of this, honestly, is an honor for me. You know, I grew up just down the street, as many of you know, on University Avenue, same street as this, just a few houses down from here. And, you know, I was an adopted, shy little boy who honestly cried too much. And the concept of being on a stage like this one day would have scared me to death. But I had, you know, this was such a nurturing community. People knew who I was. In Oxford and Ole Miss, still today, you know everyone. In those days, you knew everyone. And people looked after me. I had, you know, friends like Judy Trott, who taught me swimming lessons and was a friend still today for so many years. And you had people like that mentored, and they knew you were there, and you knew they cared about you. Like Sparky Reardon, who was a friend and a mentor. And then when I had a difficult semester at Ole Miss from drinking too much, and I didn't really understand what that was. And he told me, you know, my first piece of advice, go home, clean your room, and start from there. And I still tell students that today. It's a great starting point to see where you are. Clean up yourself, what's around you, and take a minute and pause. Where am I? Where do I want to be? Those little things made such a difference. Like in 1978, I was, you know, so you grow up in Oxford, you always want to go to all the Ole Miss sports events, right? And it was really easy to get tickets to Ole Miss basketball in those days. They didn't win a lot at all. And so, but number one, Kentucky is coming to town. They got Sam Bowie. They are loaded. Joe B. Hall's just got a stacked deck. I mean, nobody can touch Kentucky. And you cannot get a ticket to Tad Smith Coliseum. There's no StubHub. There's no online. It's like, you know, Dr. Baker, do you have an extra ticket? And he didn't. So I'm a desperate sixth grader. And I'm asking my parents, I'm asking anybody, I'm panicking. It's a Wednesday night. I have to get to that game. I get creative. I run an ad on the local AM radio station, which has a morning classified show. Desperate sixth grade student needs ticket to tonight's Ole Miss Kentucky game. That's a true story. The phone rings in 10 minutes. Haven't left for school yet. It's a nice gentleman with a firm but soft voice, approachable. Meet me in your driveway at 3:30 today after school. Wow. I'm going to the Kentucky game. I go meet that gentleman and I get that ticket. And you probably can already guess, some of you who have been a friend of his your whole life, it was Robert Khayat. And that small little thing made such a difference. He asked me, what sports do you play? Who are your friends? What subjects do you like in school? And he was a law professor then, not yet our beloved chancellor. But to be on this stage, because he has been a friend and mentor to so many to you, and I bring that point up to illustrate, the little things matter. They matter so very much. And even as an adult in my life, people like Alice Clark, which we wouldn't be here tonight with this big initiative. I wouldn't be here. Beth Ann Finley, who edited Dear William. She's one of the most talented writers in the world. Yet she cared about this cause as well and agreed to, out of friendship, out of care for the cause, agreed to help make a difference and make a book better. The little things matter. But that can work in reverse also. And I'm reminded of when my son Hudson went to treatment for substance misuse. And we had Family Day. And if any of you in here have ever been a part of Family Day, you get all excited about going because it's a connection with your loved one, but then that brick is coming because it's about unpacking the depth of pain. And in that Family Day, my son Hudson, fighting for his recovery, told a story about me. And I remember it, both him telling it and the story. And it goes like this. We're down at the beach on a big family vacation. Extended family is there, cousins, aunt, uncle, their aunts and uncle. It's a beautiful day, it's hot. I see late in the afternoon another family member bring out a pitcher of margaritas because it's fun. 4th of July week. I actually didn't drink any. I remember almost judging them. But later we have dinner and wine and more wine. And we think we're having a great time. I do. And the children, my son Hudson, come up to me after we're putting the dishes away, he tells in this Family Day, reminding everyone, and he asked me for ice cream money. You can get the picture. You've all been there. Hey, Dad, we want to go get ice cream. Oh, yeah, great. Here's your $20, son. Y'all go have fun. This is amazing. Woohoo. And what he tells in that Family Day is about how he and his brother and sister and cousins are standing around. And I'm in the middle of the house thinking I'm having a great time. And I reach to put my wallet back into my pocket. And I miss. And I did it one more time, and I miss. And probably the third time, I put it in. That is the story my son told at Family Day about his father. Now, if you don't think that gets your attention, because there's a lot of life that had been lived, and I even wouldn't have guessed that would be the one that came to his mind. But it really helped me to understand the little things matter so much. You know, family, they say, is at the root of our socialization. And undoubtedly, that's true. It's just the core unit from which we learn and grow and begin to find ourselves. But it can also be a gateway to our joy, a foundation for our joy, but also a gateway and a foundation, therefore, for our pain, which makes it deeply embedded for so many people in mental health and addictions. And that's why I wrote Dear William. It wasn't the easiest book to write, as you'll find out when you get into it. But I wrote it because I've read a lot of books on addiction and mental health and personal growth, and I've gotten something out of so many of them, but I really felt like we had a family story that needed to be told, and that was really the key element that I felt like so many people were looking for. Because, you know, like in addiction, the saying goes that every family is impacted. And that is also undoubtedly true, at least within one degree of separation. Some of our families have been shredded and torn apart by it. And, a lot of you can relate. When you have one person in a family that's embroiled in active addiction, I mean, it's just a buzzsaw ripping across the family. It's so painful and so damaging. You have two, almost hard for the unit to survive. You get three, you get four, it's unthinkable. So we had a family of five. And there was a period in the darkest days where three of us at once were really almost unwittingly, because that's how it goes with addiction, embroiled in substance misuse, and another involved in an eating disorder. And so our family, the one that people used to see on the church pews and smile at and, tell us how precious we all were, and we believed it. I mean, we were shattered. Nobody even gave us a chance to get to the next day together, much less stand up on this stage and address you. So I'm so proud of my family for being willing to deliver this family panel tonight, because I do think that deeper understanding and examination into the core makeup of a family, of how we work together and how those emotions and everything impact one another, is so critical in the journey of understanding mental health and addictions. So I'm proud tonight to tell you that we're here as a family. And it's just, we found such unbelievable joy, though we did suffer great loss. We came through this great fight, and one didn't make it. However, the human spirit, it really is resilient if we let it get the air it needs, if we let it get the support it needs, the little things that matter. So I'm proud to introduce to you tonight our family and the Magee family, and have this family panel discussion. And I hope that it begins a discussion that, as you read the book, and it's a journey that perhaps you can share with others and can make a difference somewhere. So with that, I am pleased to tell you and introduce the baby of the family. She began an eating disorder in high school. And I think when she had two older brothers involved in substance abuse and a father drinking too much, she probably thought, well, there's no way I'm going to do substances. And that wasn't anywhere on her radar. But in high school, she developed an eating disorder at the same time we're all involved in this. And she came here to Ole Miss as a student with that already underway, had it in check, she thought, a little bit. And she can talk more about this, but it began to trigger again. And she was invited by a peer to go hear a talk at another sorority. It was McCall Dempsey speaking that night, if any of you know her, one of our friend of ours and an alum. And McCall Dempsey was talking about smashing a scale. And our daughter called us and said, I got to get into counseling now. She did. She is now today a married mother of two. And I'm happy to introduce to you my daughter, Mary Halley Carlson. So I got a call one day when I'm working in New York. I had just been maybe 6 months in getting back up on my own feet, still finding my own strength. And I come out of a meeting and my phone is lighted up with messages. There's an emergency room doctor from Baptist Hospital right over here. Call me now. Your son, I don't think he's going to make it. What? I thought he was in school. I don't think he's going to make it. I beat on his chest to get his heart beating just enough, and I put him on a ventilator. He had an accident at a fraternity house on the Ole Miss campus. He accidentally overdosed, not involved in an accident. He accidentally overdosed on substances. Choked on his own vomit is how they call it. He said, I got him on a ventilator, and I don't think he's going to make it. You just need to get here as quick as you can. He was in a coma for 2 days. And I've got to be honest, we were thinking about when to pull the plug because I just couldn't take it. The concept of that in a coma. They said, he's probably brain dead. But 2 days later, he woke up. And he lives in Oxford now, and he is 9 years sober. And he is married to the lovely Lo, and they own the Oxford Creamery and live by us. And I am so proud to introduce you to our miracle child, Hudson Magee. When I was an Ole Miss freshman, on the first day of classes, I'm at a fraternity party, standing by the swimming pool, and I meet a young lady wearing a one-piece Bugs Bunny swimming suit. And she was dashing. It took a couple of years before she agreed to date me. And I've been working really hard ever since not to let her get away. But in a really difficult year, I did a pretty good job at that. I am so thankful that she has been along with me and our children as a leader on this journey, and she also believes in second chances. And I think she probably, when you read this book, Dear William, is the hero in this story because she is the glue that kept us together, that got us here tonight, my wife, Kent Magee. So I'm about to take my seat and I'm going to join the panel, but you'll notice there's a fifth stool. Our son, William, was in the Honors College at Ole Miss. He was in the Croft Institute at the same time. He was a member of the Ole Miss track team, and I love to tell anybody who will listen that he ran the 400 hurdles in the SEC Outdoor Track and Field Championships. And he earned a letter from the University of Mississippi in track and field, and it hangs in my closet. #1 garment. I should have worn that out here tonight. Really, I should have. We kept this stool open for William tonight to honor others like Will Marsalis and so many of you that have lost friends and family and loved ones far too soon. So that stool is in honor of them who didn't make it, which is why we're all here, to learn more, to dig deeper about addiction and mental health and family. And so I'm happy to introduce now the moderator of this event. She is the only one we ever considered, and we're so honored she accepted because she is a reverend and one of the most beloved and respected people on the University of Mississippi campus. She is just recently, so exciting, been named the interim dean of the Sally McDonald Barksdale Honors College. Please welcome our moderator, Dr. Ethel Scurlock.
Good evening. All right, if you've ever been in a room with me, it's good to talk back. Good evening. We are excited about this event tonight. This is a celebration. It is a celebration of recovery, a celebration of love, a celebration of freedom, and a celebration of a wonderful story of an incredible family. And this family does nothing else by simply taking this stage and standing in this audience in front of peers and family members. They've already done enough. So I'm going to ask that you would join me in just once again giving a healthy round of applause for the Magee family. Thank you. My task tonight is very simple, and it is to moderate a conversation. And when you moderate, you say less. You don't try to say everything you have to say. But I do want to take 1 minute to say that this book was fascinating. I enjoyed every page. I encourage all of you all to not just buy the book, read the book, because it is life-changing. I had to be in Orlando last week for a conference, and on my first night there, I was seeing a lot of people and talking to people and engaging with people, and they were like, well, do you want to go here? And I'm like, I can't go anywhere until I finish reading this book. So I am thankful. I'm just like Karen Bell Moore. I couldn't sit down and talk to anybody until I had done that. It's an incredible journey. And I want to begin, Kent, by talking to you because your family is amazing. When we look at you, you're beautiful. When I looked at the videos and watched the memories of your family, beautiful. You have what we would consider, when we look at you, the American dream. And many of us in our families, we present a beautiful picture to the world, and we never tell people about what's happening behind closed doors. And everybody, whether we admit it or not, we all have a closed door story. We have something that we don't tell anybody. So Kent, David has written a revealing book that shared your secrets with the world. He says in the end notes that you are the one who urged him to go deeper. But having such a revealing book about what happened behind closed doors cannot be easy. Can you talk to us a little bit about what this journey has been like?
Sure, I can do that. By nature, I'm a much more private and reserved person than David, as anybody that knows us can say. We're kind of opposites that way, but as we began, so the book is revealing, and I've definitely stepped out of my comfort zone as it was approached. But I've learned a lot that's made it easier along this way. And that was really things that I learned the first time we ever told William's story publicly, which was he passed in 2013. And 2016, David wrote, he at the time was the publisher of the Oxford Eagle, and he said that fall, as school was resuming at Ole Miss, he said, I want to write a column that tells William's story. He wrote the Sunday column in the paper. He said, I want to write a column, and he titled it A Letter to Freshmen, My Son William's Story. And he said, I want to tell a story, and we never had publicly, and I'm not sure, and he said, I'm going to write it, and I want you to read it, and if you say delete, I'll delete it. But if you like it, and you're okay with it, I'm going to print it. And so I grudgingly read it, and it was good. And I said, okay, print it. And so that was, I think, in August of that year, and ran in that Sunday's paper, and then it was soon uploaded onto the internet, and then it began to be shared, and then shared more. And before it was finished, that column telling William's story was shared and read over 1 million times across the country. And that was amazing. And what also was amazing was this overwhelming response that some people we knew, some people we haven't seen in years, some total strangers, this outpouring of reaching out, and like they were saying, me too, like I lost my daughter, or we're worried about our son, or I grew up in an alcoholic household, and they just want to tell you. And I just realized that so many people are just thirsting for the connection of knowing that they're not alone, and any family or individual that suffered from addiction will probably agree. At times, it's like you're carrying 1 million heavy secrets, and you feel so alone. And just hearing somebody else's story, even if the details are slightly different than your own, is so freeing and just making you not feel alone. And I realized that just our telling William's story, and it made it a little easier for me to step out of my comfort zone. And then David, and just to make that point, this is true story. The day William actually passed, through the tears later that afternoon, and it's the stigma that keeps people carrying those secrets. And that afternoon, when David came in, I said, okay, what are we going to say happened? How are we going to say he died? Because I do not want to say he died of a drug overdose. Because most people didn't know the last 12 months that he'd been in and out of treatment, in and out of rehab. Only our really immediate family, a couple of close friends knew. We kind of thought that's William's story to tell later when he's back on his feet. He can, tell that story if he wants or not. And I knew the stigma, if people just read William Magee died of an overdose, that would be attached to him, that people would judge him. They would have this false stereotype, and that would be the last thoughts and image that people had. And he was just the opposite of that, And I realized that only for me to make up a story, I knew you're not thinking rationally when at times like that, and thankfully David was. And he said, we just have to tell the truth. And I realized if I did anything less than tell the truth, I'm just playing into that stigma even more. And so, we shared the story, and then, David came to me later, said, I feel moved. I want to write a memoir now. I'm going to tell my whole story, tell our whole family's story. And I knew I'd be out of my comfort zone again, but I felt it would be, I told him, dig deep. I think it's going to be cowardly if we do anything less than dig deep and be brutally honest about this. It'd be a disservice to people that suffer from addiction themselves. And I just said, we can't do this, or you can't do this Instagram airbrushed version of what happened, because, it would be cowardly, I felt, even though I stepped out of my zone. So, I just, in the truth, being brutally truthful, it's like the best medicine, I think. It has been for us. And hopefully that's what it takes to break the stigma. So it's made it easier.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I love the fact that you continually talked about being free. And I think this is a narrative that will set many people free. So Hudson, let's turn to you. You really have a remarkable story. And to read about all that you've gone through, nearly dying on a university campus, then coming back to life, and then changing your life. Do you mind telling us a little bit about when your substance misuse began and what some of the factors were that contributed to that?
Definitely. I would say that it started pretty early for me in middle school, and really what a lot of that stemmed from is just trying to be cool and fit in, just be at the center of what's going on, and have fun with all my friends. Started pretty innocently. When you start that early, it kind of sets a track of progression that can happen pretty easily. And then just that feeling of trying to be cool and fit in, I didn't lose that because it kind of works in a way where, in high school, you're going to all the parties and you're, having fun with your friends. People know who you are and they like the person that you are. When you're drinking or doing drugs, it just, they thought it was cool. So I kind of ran with that and chased that. And, something that kind of stood out for me when I sort of progressed into high school that I thought was different about myself than others who were also trying to be cool was me and my friends had started smoking weed also. And, we all had some at a point, and we all got together the next weekend, and they all still had theirs, but I didn't because I had it, so I smoked it by myself, which I, liked to do often. And I was talking to them later, and I was like, you have this stuff, why would you not smoke it by yourself? And they were like, I don't know, why would you, sort of thing. And it just stood out to me like, we're different in some way that I can't put my finger on. And then coming to college here, William was 2 years ahead of me, and that really jump-started my progression into this as well, because, coming in as a freshman, you kind of get exposed to things in a slow way. But I moved in with him and all his friends, and we're in the same fraternity with them. So it kind of just stepped me up a notch, I guess, from the friends that I had. And it was the same thing where we'd be just chasing that feeling of like being the cool guy, just kind of fitting in with the crowd. And I remember one time walking to class here on campus, and just passing people, and it seemed like everybody was saying hey to me. And some of my friend Sam, later was like, how do all these people know you? And I, to myself at the time, thought it's because I'm cool. I don't know. These people just like me. And looking back on it, it's different than that. It's because most of them were people in different fraternities that I had sold weed to, and made connections with people that just liked me because I was maybe the person to sit next to at the party. It wasn't the mindset that I thought at the time. And to answer your question, it was just the things that were sort of the catalyst for me. It was just chasing the feeling of being cool and fitting in, not wanting to miss out on stuff, and it progressed to the point where it just stuck in a way that kind of controlled me,
Thank you for being so honest and transparent. I hold on to that idea of the fear of missing out, and we talk about people having FOMO, that fear of missing out, and it's so important that you share when we chase that, where does it lead us? So thank you for sharing that. So Mary Halley, let's talk a little bit about your situation. So we know that with you never battled substance abuse, but you had some other things that you were battling with. You battled an eating disorder especially. So can you talk a little bit to the audience about the impact that what was happening around you had on this disorder? And kind of talk a little bit about when and where this disorder started.
Yes, so just for context, a lot of what was going on in our family during that period, I was 15, 16, 17 years old. And so I think that that's what sets me apart from the boys, is that I was still a child. And Hudson was teetering on it, but 15 is a child. So a child's experience of trauma is just different. And so in those 3 or so years, I, through my lens, experienced just traumatic event after traumatic event. And if you know me at all, then you know I do not like conflict at all. I'm a peacekeeper, not necessarily a peacemaker, a peacekeeper. And I do not like when the boat is rocked. I want everyone in the room happy. If I could have dreamed up a perfect scenario for that time, we would have been holding hands, skipping through Disney World, wearing mouse ears. That's when I just laid in bed at night and thought, please, please. That is me. And so you can imagine that those years where it was just dark, just complete darkness in our home, and darkness. And it was just my worst nightmare. And I was so young that, of course, I try and have grace for myself. Of course, I didn't know how to cope with it. And so by the time I tried for a little while to kind of dance and sing and keep everyone happy and we're good, but that can only last so long, of course, because it's not real. And probably after a year of that, I was 16, and I just remember feeling inside. I just felt sick inside. I remember I really, literally just felt sick to my stomach all the time because I just had so many emotions in such a young mind, and I just didn't know what to do with them. And they were really, really big emotions and big feelings, and I just didn't know what to do with them. And I remember being so angry that I felt dead inside, and I couldn't give anything but a smile. I didn't know how to express it at all, and so I just kept smiling. I remember eventually kind of opening up to a best friend about some things that were going on, and she was like, "What is wrong with you? You're smiling. Like, it's horrible news that you're telling me, and you're smiling. Like, stop smiling." And so I think that my eating disorder began around that time because I didn't know how to wave a flag for help. I didn't know how to ask for it, and I felt I wanted attention and love, and I wanted people to know that I was struggling and suffering, and that their actions were hurting me. And so I thought, well, I'll show them on the outside. And so I wanted my outside to match what I felt on the inside. And what began as just what I thought was just that, as the story often goes, is that it quickly spirals into something that you no longer have control over.
Thank you. Kent, let's come back to you. So when we were backstage, I talked to you about the fact that after reading this book especially, I really see your resilience, and I really look up to you as a woman of strength and grace and beauty and resilience. And when your husband was talking, he said that you are the true hero of the narrative. And in many ways, I find that to be true. There's so many times when I'm reading this book, honestly, and when I'm reading it and some of the things that David Magee did, they probably would have had a book about me, but it would have been a different book. It would have been a real different book. It would have been snapped, 48 hours, who did it? So it would have been a different narrative. But through all the trauma, through all the pain, through all that you've gone through, you seem to stay centered on keeping the family moving forward. How did you do that? How did you pull it together?
Well, I'd address that first, maybe just by starting to try to describe. It's hard to describe the feeling of losing a 23-year-old son. At first, it's like a surreal experience. It's very out of body. You feel like this is not happening. This can't be happening. I'm going to wake up and this is all a terrible nightmare. And after that point, it kind of descends into your body and body and mind. It just descends this, like, mentally, your mind just is like an overactive loop that just, why, what went wrong? What did we do wrong? What should we have done more? Why didn't we do this? And then physically, just like this heavy, heavy weight is inside your body, and tension in your chest and arms, and like literally realizing you're not breathing and remembering and then taking a breath. And it's just a heavy, dark place, the grief after, that major trauma. And I kind of quickly realized I can't stay, we can't stay stuck in this phase for very long. And I know, health, it's so important to get through it. You shouldn't try to numb it or pack it in a box and then, put a lipstick smile on. I think that's very unhealthy, but just marching through the fire, just keep on moving and dealing with it and kind of sitting in it. And, I had a good friend during that time, and she kind of knew the trauma that really had led up to that losing William as well. It wasn't the first, bump in our road, but she said, I know what you're feeling is heavy and feels like more than you can bear or even manage. But she said, God is bigger. And this is so so much. I know that you feel like you'll never get through it, but God is bigger. And you have to just keep taking the next step and doing the right thing and keeping, and then I turn around and I still have a son and daughter that are sitting there, thankfully, that we have. And I just thought I'm going to do everything I can to keep this family together, to keep us moving forward. Hopefully trying to even do something to find goodness and, redemption out of this story.
We're almost out of time, so I'm going to ask the last question as a combination question to both Mary Halley and to Hudson. So I ran into David and Kent at a dinner party a few weeks ago. And when you're at a dinner party, people are weaving in and out of the conversation, so you can start a conversation and